Why are some towers of medieval city walls round and others rectangular? These shapes are not random, but the real reason behind them is not what we initially assume. I propose to answer this question simply but seriously, based on the excellent work of a reference in the field, Jean Mesquis, who is a great specialist in medieval fortifications. To clarify, we're discussing flanking towers, which are towers used to strengthen a fortified enclosure. Examples include the towers on the outer enclosure of the Château de Gisors and the covered docks. But then, why were rectangular towers built in the Middle Ages? From the 11th and 12th centuries, medieval stone fortifications and their first towers gradually emerged. During the initial phase, the predominant tower model is the quadrangular or rectangular type. For the future, who was favored? And this initially for one main reason: most of these towers did not have a strictly military vocation. This may seem strange, but you'll soon understand. The idea of the fortifications of the time was to allow, within the fortified enclosure, a whole bunch of activities to exist, while benefiting from the protection of the walls. This requirement quite logically required that there be living spaces within this space, both safe but also limited. This is how the first rectangular towers naturally appeared, which were in practice the stacking of living and utility spaces over several floors related to the life of the castle. It was around this civil use that the defensive device was then installed. As a result, entire sections of these initial towers lacked archers altogether. So the archers, for precision, are what we also know under the imprecise term of murder holes. And to put it simply, the term murder hole is a generic and broad term designating an opening in a fortification. Of course, it allows to shoot or throw projectiles at an opponent, but it can also serve as ventilation to communicate with the outside, or to a lesser degree, add to a space's brightness. Rectangular towers with a military purpose only appeared in the 12th century. They were simpler and cheaper to build, offering a dual advantage, as well as having a good interior volume, allowing for the massing of defenders and therefore shooters. However, they have several military disadvantages. As time passes, they become less effective against medieval siege engines that can launch increasingly heavy projectiles. Another drawback of rectangular towers is that they inherently have blind spots. However, this second point is more theoretical than practical. In medieval European siege warfare, the impact of blind spots on the siege's outcome was quite anecdotal. On the other hand, medieval siege warfare developments and the rectangular model's weakness against advancements in medieval siege weapons influenced castle design. This model of the rectangular tower gradually becomes a weakness within the defense system. King Philippe Auguste of France is responsible for the massive adoption of the circular tower in Western Europe. To be accurate, circular or horseshoe-shaped towers existed before Philippe. The change he brings is much more global. He creates a new model of standardized and well-thought-out fortification, including circular towers, as well as a more offensive positioning of the keep by integrating it into the flanking rather than keeping it in the center of the fortifications. He then imposed this new model in his domain. The new device's effectiveness, combined with his political will, strengthened the Kingdom of France's defenses. He is imitated by his vassals, who are then imitated by their neighbors, and so on. What exactly distinguishes the rectangular model from other models? The key distinction is that their primary purpose and design is military in nature. Even though some could serve as living or utility space, that was not their main role. Circular towers are in fact better adapted to the changes in medieval warfare. Their shape and design allow them to both actively and effectively contribute to the defense of the place, while resisting medieval artillery much better. However, rectangular towers remain common in the 13th century CE. Sometimes square towers are built alongside circular ones, as seen in Druid and Bellefontaine Castle, where circular towers occupy the fortification's corners, while the two large intermediate rectangular towers reinforce the defensive system. Rectangular towers were built until the 15th century, after which they disappear from the range of towers constructed. Once the use of cannons gradually becomes widespread in Europe, the development of circular towers also sees the reappearance of a hybrid model, the semicircular towers, which have a U or horseshoe shape. These, widely used by the Romans in antiquity, developed their medieval form in the 13th century. They offer the benefits of both rectangular and round towers. Their rounded exterior provides good artillery absorption and a clear view for the defenders, while optimizing the interior volumes, allowing to increase applications and maximize the number of deployable defenders. It was once believed that the Crusades caused this revival. The Europeans were likely inspired by the fortifications they observed in the East, especially the Byzantine-style defense systems. However, Jean-Misky dismisses this hypothesis by pointing out that the East and the West were already in contact before the Crusades. These tower models inherited from the Roman Empire were known in the West. In fact, the revival of this model, like the others, is simply linked to the military and socio-economic context of the medieval West at that time, making it simply make new sense. Alongside the revival of horseshoe iron towers, a rarer model emerges, being more challenging and costly to construct. The spur tower. This shape allows to increase a tower's resistance to damage caused by medieval siege artillery. This was due to its spur, which reduced the impact of incoming projectiles. There also exist more marginally towers with other shapes, notably in polygon, trying to merge the benefits of rectangular and circular towers, among other things. Now, you know why some towers are rectangular, round, or semicircular. These shapes simply correspond to the needs and realities of the medieval West, evolving quite logically with their times and socio-economic context. In fact, the coexistence of these varied uses, interests, and shapes has been observed.